and have turned to this sector as a way of earning a living. And with me in studio, let me just introduce my panelists again. I have Mr. Victor Otieno, who's the MD for VIFA Consultant, and also I have Chesubire Greg. It's such a unique name. So before we take a short commercial break, we were talking about, why women get into business, the funding, from the bank, and what you need to consider. But then, Greg, let's have a look at, this sort of impact that COVID-19 has had on women in SMEs, and especially when it comes to banks that have offered women in the SME sector loans and they're not able to repay it. Some we've seen, when you look at the newspaper, we're seeing auction being done.
So, good and bad stories, that's the truth of it. Everybody has been affected because largely, when you look at the research that came out of doing business with women, largely women are in hospitality, wholesale, retail and manufacturing. Now the ones in hospitality took a major hit. Wholesale and retail took a major hit. Remember, the seas were closed for a while. For the ones who had loans, who had good relationships with their banks, many have been able to kind of stabilize because most banks offered moratoriums, delays, and anybody who took charge of that worked. The challenge for many who didn't go and talk to the bank is the bank will come calling. One of the things we have found as we've worked with different financial partners is when you go and present your case, you can always talk. And I think that's where many women get caught. Remember, I referenced the aspect of fear and getting stuck because you don't know what to do. And that I think caught a lot of women because I don't know I can talk to my bank and renegotiate. A guy will just go and plead his case and move on, but our natural inclination to be uncertain and unsure maybe caught some of us off guard. So one of the things we've been hearing with the financial partners we deal with at SFA is please come and talk to us. And those who took that opportunity, went and maybe renegotiated their loans, went and explained their case, were able to get tailor-made solutions. It helped with the moratorium. Did businesses close? Absolutely. Did businesses stutter? Absolutely. So what... I don't know how to put this question, but let me just put it in a layman's language. Okay. So as a person who's in the SME, in the small, medium enterprise, where should I get my loan? Should I go to the microfinance or just go to the banks? Because there are several microfinance institutions in the country. Which one is the best? I would not say which one is the best. I would say use a blend of options. For instance, there are things like, okay, we call them chamas. There are people building revolving funds. Like I know at SFA, we're building a revolving fund. We started it during the COVID season, and we are at $500,000 on the table, right? So look at if you can find a revolving fund, an association with a revolving fund, if you can find a microfinance or a bank that listens to you, the key thing is to do your research. Go to multiple places, find out who has a product that could work for you and who has a listening ear. When you find a partner who can listen to you and is willing to walk with you, because we found some of them are banks, some are microfinances, some are even smaller agencies. Find a partner who's willing to work with you. I may need 100,000. Somebody needs 5 million. The person you go to will be different. So it comes back to something Victor alluded to. Many of us don't have access to the right data. When you're in networks and associations that can get you the access to data, do your research, find the one that's best suited for you. If I need 20,000, I can go to a revolving fund. That would be easier. The interest rates are different. Instead of going to the bank for 20,000, they look at me like, are you crazy?
So this revolving fund, is it more the same like the table banking, Victor? Because I know women are more into the table banking in terms of the SMEs. Yeah,
yes, it is. And I think the idea around finance, if you were to reference the study that we did, the top 3 financing options for a lot of women entrepreneurs was savings, business profits, family friends, as well as chamas. It's good that it's working at this stage, but the insight that we got from that is that yes, you can be able to access finance at that level, But the challenge with that level of finance is it's not enough for you to be able to invest in assets or in investment that can be able to unlock greater value. In the sense that you might need maybe to invest in a certain machine, you might need to invest in re-education or retraining, and chances are that the kind of financing that currently women are accessing in terms of family, friends, chamas, etc., might not be enough for them to be able to really unlock potential and be able to scale to to national, the regional, as well as the continental market.
So Victor, from what I'm getting, from what you're saying and from what Greg is saying, does it mean that the microfinance institutions or banking environment, both institutions they've not made it easier? They've not had an easy environment for women-led SMEs in terms of getting loans as a backup?
Yeah, so I think for you to answer that, you probably need to just look at the structure of what we call SMEs in the country. So we have, based on 2016 MSME report by KNBS, we had around 7.4 million SMEs, with around 90% of those being micro. So these are SMEs, or these are businesses that are posting annual turnovers of less than 500,000, and out of that, 79% of those are informal.
Right.
So of course, if you look at that, of that nature, 500,000 and below, they probably don't have collateral, they don't have informal, it means that they don't keep books. It makes it very difficult for them to be able to access formal institutions. So I think that's where the challenge is. But we've seen efforts through, for instance, the initiative that is currently undergoing around credit guarantee scheme, as well as being able to access loans by using alternative assets. I can't remember the exact law that has been put in place, but it's just the Movable Asset Bill Act, where you can be able to access finance with your fridge, with your TV, etc. So there is some efforts from government and different players to allow or enable the small and informal businesses to be able to access finance. But I think the broader conversation that we should be having is how do we really address the issue of informality in this country, and how can we be able to support our businesses to be able to scale from micro to small to medium. Right. Then probably we can be able to have more robust conversation in terms of access to finance.
All right, and Greg, in a minute, let me just speak your mind on this. I like what Victor said, as much as you're supporting, we need to look at so many things in terms of borrowing funds and how, women-led SMEs can be supported. During this time of COVID-19, do you think the banks need to be lenient on the SMEs? Because it's a tough time. Everyone is feeling the effect of the pandemic financially.
Remember I said it goes back to how you go and you talk to your individual lender. They have actually been reasonably lenient. Can they do more? I think you can always do more for a business. You can always put more on the table. The challenge has been, and unfortunately historically, SMEs have defaulted a lot more. So I would say yes, maybe. But then on the flip side, I would look at how do we build the ability of SMEs to stand? Because when I am able to stand, when I have track record, when I have my history in place, the bank will definitely look at me and say, oh, this is a company with potential. And it goes back to mindset. I want to be known as a business owner, not a woman business owner. And, the whole conversation of, I'm running a business. I do want a few perks as a woman, but I also want to sit at the table and be a legitimate voice, not be there because you are given a seat because you're a woman. How do I do that? I build my resilience as a woman. I put in the right structures as a woman, as a business owner, and I can speak to my bank and say, this is my track record, you can see I've been faithful, you can see my potential, let's have a conversation as a business owner to a bank, not just because I'm a woman.
All right.
Yeah.
And Victor, I keep on referring to that report and the webinar session that you had because I had a look at it and a listen, to that webinar session that you had. And supporting female-owned SMEs through national gender policies, is it working? Because now we have, like one of the gender policies, 2 gender policies that I know of that has been put in place by the government through Parliament in terms of bills. It's in terms of tenders, giving women tenders, young people tenders, you know, persons with disability tenders. But this policy really working for women?
To start us, I think maybe just even to give it context in terms of the importance of women in society. You know, we've seen you know, different reports indicate that, for example, in sub-Saharan Africa, 80% of food that is produced is done by women. So that gives you a perspective in terms of the role of the woman in society. And again, looking at the report, you are seeing the way the spending trends of a woman entrepreneur vis-a-vis a man is quite different, in the sense that the woman spends the money that she earns for social causes, other than reinvesting back to the business. There is the triple effect, the ripple effect of the woman entrepreneur investing in the wider society from a social perspective, which I think is very important. Once you understand that, then the question is, how can we be able to uniquely support women entrepreneurs to be able to thrive? Of course, affirmative action through maybe, for example, you know, access to government procurement opportunities is very important. But the challenge is, how can we be able to tighten that process to ensure that men don't use that opportunity to have a woman director, but you know, the man is the one running the company. So if we can be able to tighten those policies, those frameworks, to ensure that genuinely women are able to access these kinds of opportunities, then probably we can be able to make a step forward.
And Greg, you know, when Victor was talking, it just took me back to women-led SMEs in the interior parts of this country, in the northern parts of this country, where they're experiencing climate change. And some of them are into the dairy industry in terms of small businesses that they're doing as a way of earning a living. How has that affected the growth of business?
Oh, that's a big one. Climate change becomes a big player because you have no control over the climate. If we have a drought and your animals die, or you're unable to reach market, you lose product. So there's been an adverse effect in those areas. And I think the thing we need to look at is, how do the different businesses help each other with value addition? So for instance, I have the camel. Can somebody process the camel milk? I grow the watermelon. Can we get somebody to deliver to market? Because and the SFA, we are very forward thinking. This is the challenge, how do we move forward? So we have a challenge with climate change. What are the measures we can put in place? And this is where I think we need to have a lot more grassroots education, smaller sector meetings, go and sit with a particular set of people and figure what are your challenges? Because it's very easy to sit here in the capital and say, the challenges in Northeastern must be, and then list them. But do I really understand the heart of the woman at the grassroots in Northeastern? And that is something I find that we are doing a lot more. We're sitting in silos, trying to figure out what interventions we could give them, yet the intervention they need is a connection to access to market.
All right.
Yes.
Right. And ladies and gentlemen, we're bringing this conversation to an end, so I'd like to give you a minute each. Let me begin with the final remarks of Victor. And this is something that you're so passionate about, you know, in that report, in terms of trying to open the East African market for women-led SMEs.
Yeah, so thank you very much. We've continued to pursue conversations around access to market. And the reason why we continue to have conversations around EAC, East Africa Community, as well as the African Continental Free Trade Area, is it gives an opportunity for women-led SMEs, as well as entrepreneurs in general, to be able to access a wider market. So I think that's the reason why and if you look at the study, for instance, we are seeing a lot of the main growth strategies for women-led SMEs were referrals from family friends, as well as satisfied clients, walk-in customers. Yes, these are solid growth strategies, but they are not enough for you to be able to access a bigger market, hence, grow your business, and of course, create employment and contribute to, socio-economic development of the country.
And finally, from you, Greg, what sort of personal, can I say, habit should women in the SME get rid of? Because when difficult times come, like this time, you know, there's a Swahili word that says, unachuna pesa kidogo. You know, because, and that is what Victor talked about, you know, women in terms of trying to take their money to direct it towards other channels of the social, you know, life. As a woman, your family is in need, and you're thinking, I have some money from this business, let me bring that money and spend it in the house. But what social personal behavior should guide us in terms of ensuring that the SME I'm into actually thrives?
Here's a big one for us, and we call it the profit first methodology. Ensure that when your money comes in, when you do very good financials, know what is profit, know what is your pay, know what is expenses, and then please pay yourself. That is the one thing entrepreneurs do. And I know we say, oh, I don't know whether I'll make the money. Plan it in. When you're doing your costings, ensure that you're able to get all those from there and put it aside.
So I pay myself?
Pay yourself.
What percentage? 10%,
Figure
5%?
out. Now, this one is a conversation for another day, because I need to figure out my personal expenses and understand if I need to make 100,000, well, if I'm paying government tax, it needs to be 136. How much does my company need to make so that I can pay myself that money? You must understand that you must feed your family. You must take care of your people. So find a way to pay yourself so that what pesa ya biashara ni pesa ya biashara, because you are a paid employee. If I don't pay myself, I will pick money from the till. I will have no money for reinvestment. Hasta la vista, we go down in a few months. And that's what it has to be.
I like the closing remarks that both of you have given. You know, from Victor, we need to just look beyond the walls of Kenya. Let's go to the East African nation, the East Africa community as a way of expanding business. And you know what, Greg, you said, pesa ya biashara ni pesa ya biashara, usichune kidogo. Thank you so much, Victor Otieno, the Managing Director, Vifa Consultancy, and Chesubire Greg, who is the President of the SMEs Founders Association. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning on KTNU Center. And for that in-depth conversation we've had about women-led SMEs. I believe you've learned so much. Even me, I've totally learned a lot.